natin with China, na re-reaffirm yung dating foreign policy at magandang ugnayan ng China and the Philippines during the presidency of Duterte, of Rodrigo Duterte. Kasi lahat ito, kung titignan mo, itong joint oil and gas exploration in the South China, the disputed waters of the South China Sea between China and the Philippines, this is not new. Mayroon mutual understanding between President Duterte and Chinese President Xi Jinping during his time, during Duterte time, na itry itong i-push at try to find a way dun sa tinatawag mong constitutional provisions na medyo constraining para i-push ito. Duterte was pushing for this and also advocating for this. And also during the time of Duterte, there was a very good relation with China when you talk about development and economics. Though yung siniseparate niya ang issue ng sovereignty claims natin sa South China Sea, that's a different issue. Let the diplomat handle it. Pero in other areas na walang conflict of interest or conflict between China and the Philippines, Duterte was saying, the President Duterte was saying, let's continue and let's have and explore good relation and constructive relation with China because it benefits the Philippines. Hindi ito bago. This is exactly the foreign policy when you talk about China of President Duterte. Sa domestic level, ang nakakainis na para bang anong tingin mo sa amin? Hindi namin alam at wala kaming pakiramdam at hindi namin nakikita na hindi na nga kami gumagamit ng aircon kasi mahal masyado ang kuryente dahil sumipa na lahat, yung pataas. So yun ang tingin ko diyan na para bang bakit ba kailangan bakit ba kailangan nila ng ganitong mga pronouncement? It's like, why are you trying to make the whole Philippines like stupid people when in fact we all know kung ano ang talaga ang state of, kumbaga, ano yung state of affairs at ano talaga ang totoong state ng Pilipinas when you talk about energy, when you talk about economics, when you talk about the dollar to a peso. Alam mo yun, yung isa lang na kailangan mong tignan na indicator eh. $1 is equivalent already, i-round off mo to 61 pesos. Permanent end to the war. Reject any temporary ceasefire. Well, the word permanent itself is very debatable. What do you mean by that? So, pero kung ako si Trump, tanggapin ko na to, no? Pero ano yung guarantee na may permanent na no attack on Iran? Kasi the word permanent is loaded. Second, guarantee that Iran will not be attacked again. Well, siguro naman, kaya naman ibigay siguro ng United States ito at saka ng Israel. But maybe the United States can give in. Pero what about Israel? Kasi ang Israel, with the likes of Netanyahu, talaga ang kanilang ultimate purpose is talagang ma-eliminate ang Iran. Because ang Iran is a regional power that, kalaban, yung sa perception ba nila, kalaban nila. So, ang third is, and Israel strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon. So, ang question is not even on the United States. The question is if Israel will really agree to this. Very difficult itong number 3. Number 1 and number 3. Number 1 is debatable, permanent, and end to war, which is good but very hard for as far as the United States is concerned. The third one, and Israel strike against Hezbollah. I don't know if Israel will give in to this. The other one is halt to all regional attacks and not just against Iran. So, ito naman, I think okay to. Number 4, kaya. Madali lang. Kasi hindi lang Iran daw wag i-attack lahat ng regionals. Oh, well, good naman yan. Ito naman number 5, full lifting of all US and international sanction on Iran. This is very difficult. Kasi pag sinabi mong international sanction, embargo of oil. The nuclear program of Iran, both civilian and military. Kasi right now, before the strike against Iran by the United States and Israel, there was a negotiations ongoing between United States and Iran saying na ang Iran willing na sila na okay, yung aming military aspiration to have nuclear weapons and hindi na namin gagawin yan, ito na lang kami dito sa energy sa civilian, for civilian. So mayroon ng willingness ang Iran to even surrender that kind of aspiration na magkaroon sila ng nuclear weapon. Pero right now after this war, I don't think so. I think they will really demand na alam mo yun, they pursue. Kasi ito yung isa sa kanilang demand. And one of the sanction against Iran is this very specific nuclear program ng Iran. I don't think Iran will negotiate on that. So that is very difficult. And number 5 is very difficult. Number 6, in return, Iran will lift its blockade and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Kung papayag, so number 1 to 3 to 4, 5, which is okay naman. Number 7, a protocol for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay then, related to number 6 and number 7. Number 8, Iran will impose a transit fee of $2 million per ship, per barko. $2 million na dadaan. That's a very expensive cost. Pero yun ang gusto nila because they need to recover funds and also they need to earn money kasi re-reconstruct nila ang kanilang nasirang infrastructure at ang bansa nila na tinarget-target at binomba-bomba. So I think that's possibly revenue generation. So 2 million per ship, ha? Oh my God. I don't know if Israel and US will agree to this and other countries. Kasi ang tanker na pumapasok dyan sa Strait of Hormuz, hindi lang naman US eh. Marami pa. Pero magkakaroon sila ng fee. And number 9 is the fee will be split with Oman. Kasi Oman is very close to the Strait of Hormuz. Geography speaking. And number 10, reconstruction of infrastructure destroyed by US and Israel demanded as a separate condition. So ibig sabihin, ang reconstruction ng Iran to restore Iran to the pre-war period would be paid by Israel and the United States. Ang tanong, papayag ba ang United States given that if you really look at the United States right now, every day this Middle East war is costing them $2 billion US. That was Dr. David O told me when I had an interview with him last Monday night. So sabi ko, ang laki, $2 billion US ang cost almost every day. So kung ganun na ang cost ng ng United States, tapos ikaw pa nagdidemand ng Iran na ikaw ang magbabayad sa reconstruction namin since binomba-bomba mo kami, malaking usapin yun. So if you really look at the 10-point negotiating point and agenda of Iran to facilitate what you call permanent end to the conflict na mayroon ngayon during the 2-week ceasefire. These are not easy agenda to talk about and discuss. And that's even on the part of Iran only. Mayroon bang negotiating point din si Trump at saka yung Israel na gusto nilang sundin ng Iran na kapag hindi yan nagtugma at hindi nag-agree, within 2 weeks, resume na naman sila sa kanilang gera. So, what I'm saying is the reality with all of these are not easy negotiating points, and it will take a lot of discussion and a lot of what you call political will from both sides to even settle kung anong kaya nilang i-give away doon sa 10 at ano yung pwedeng i-push. On the other hand, ang tingin ko sa Iran from my reading and from the reports na nababasa ko, and of course discussion with other people in the international level na sinusubaybayan itong Iran conflict, Iran will not give in. Iran will be strong and it has a strong position to negotiate and to push for what you call the 10 na agenda nila in this political dialogue with the United States. So hindi natin alam, 'di ba? Well, we will see. We will see. Pero mahirap 'yun, ha. I'm not kidding, Admar. Mahirap yung 10-point on the part of Iran na hinihingi nila sa Israel and the United States. And I'm not sure if Trump is even capable or even willing, and even the United States will be able to comply with all of these things, and give in. So yan ay something that we need to monitor, and we will see in a matter of time in the next 2 weeks. Yeah.
Opo. Dito naman po sa mga hakbang na pinopropose po ng ilan sa mga mambabatas like kagaya po ni Congressman Leandro Leviste, na baka pwede nating kung ano yung magtipid tayo doon kasi tayo ang host sa ASEAN for this year at napakalaking pondo po ang inilaan. Pwede ba tayong maging simple lang like kagaya sa panahon po ng pandemya ba na ganun yung setup para at least and may epekto po ba kung mag-adjust muna si Pilipinas bilang host sa ASEAN kasi pinuna rin ng mga Pilipino yung mga post ng First Lady na nagtitikim-tikim na ng mga pagkain na pwedeng isilbi, food taste ata para sa kasi host tayo po ng mga bisita mula sa mga iba't ibang mga bansa dito po sa ASEAN, Prof.
Oh, actually magandang tanong 'yan kasi kung mayroon kang crisis sa Pilipinas, naghihirap ang mga Pilipino, crunch time, ang budget actually totoo diyan yung ASEAN hosting mo at saka pagiging ASEAN chair. Malaki ang budget na ilalaan talaga ng current government diyan. Kasi syempre delegation, halimbawa isang country delegation pa lang, ang dami na niyan eh. Tsaka hindi mo naman pwedeng ilagay yan sa mga pipitsugin hotel at hindi mo naman pwedeng papakainin yan ng mga kung ano-ano lang unless you're willing, 'di ba? Na sabihin sa kanila na o dito lang kayo sa hotel na star number ano lang, star 1 or star 2, hindi yung 5 star, 'di ba? Parang ganun. So, malaki talaga ang pondo na ilalaan diyan at probably nilaan na diyan. Ang problema, we have a crisis and also even before the Middle East war, malaki na ang problema ng Pilipinas in terms of economy and even in terms of budget. So kung tatanungin mo ako kung nag-agree ako doon kay Leviste, Congressman Leviste na magtipid-tipid. Well, dapat talaga may austerity measure. And you need to find a way na you're still be hosting kasi chair tayo ng ASEAN this year eh. That's even the thing eh. Kasi alam mo, before pa ito mangyari, mayroon ng mga suggestion na kung pwede, ipasa na muna yung chairmanship halimbawa sa next in line. Kasi ang Pilipinas, it seems na magulo nga, may domestic problem ka, may corruption ka, ang daming problema, economic struggle natin as a country. And then ngayon, dumating pa itong Middle East crisis. Kumbaga, doon muna sa iba na mas economically stable and mas wealthy, mas mayaman na bansa tulad ng Singapore. So pero hindi tinuloy ni Marcos Jr. So ngayon, responsibilidad natin na ngayon kung magtitipid ka, okay, talagang kailangan mo magtipid, siguro kailangan mong tignan kung saan ka alam mo yun, ito-tone down mo ba ang cost na hindi siya masyadong bongga, hindi siya masyadong sosyal, at wag tayong magkunwari na, alam mo yun, kukunwari ka na sosyal-sosyal, ang bongga-bongga, pero ang mga Pilipino ay naghihirap at hindi kumakain ng 3 beses sa isang araw dahil sa economic crisis na kinaharap ng bansa. Napaka-hypocritical naman nun. At alam naman ng mga ASEAN counterparts natin and even ASEAN partners na the Philippines is not the wealthiest country in ASEAN. So, siguro, magpakatotoo tayo na, you need to tone down. Siguro, medyo, wag masyadong, try to economize ba? But you can still be hosting ASEAN events in the Philippines na meaningful naman, substantial, yung meetings, but not to the point na sobrang social and sobrang bongga. But the problem that you have to remember is, the Marcoses, including probably the First Lady, are not known for being frugal, are not known for being economized, are not known for economizing things when you talk about socialan, party, at, hosting an event or hosting, like a party or something. Hindi sila known for that eh. They're known for being extravagant and they're known for being, bongga-bongga and social-social. That's what I know. Well, hindi lang naman ako yan eh. Maraming mga tao and the whole Philippines, the whole world knows that. Know that. So, sa akin, hopefully, i-tone down yan kasi malaking budget niyan. Kung ang ibang budget dyan is shift mo to help our kababayan na naghihirap, better siguro. And we should not be hypocritical kasi magbubongga-bongga ka tapos mamaya makikita ng mga delegates coming from different countries kung anong sitwasyon ng Manila and ng the rest of the Philippines, nakakahiya yun. Better to be more authentic and authentic sa kung ano talaga ang sitwasyon natin. I think other countries and other leaders in ASEAN would appreciate that. Pero, well, I don't know if yung suggestion na magtipid, maging frugal, at maging, well, meaningful pa rin ang hosting, but not too bongga, not social-social, and, try to be hypocrite na you can afford this, that, pero hindi naman pala kaya ng ekonomiya mo, and it cost a lot to the economy and to other, ang nagsasuffer pala ang mga Pilipino, yun ang problema natin sa current administration kasi well we all know that they are the Marcoses, even the first lady is not known for being frugal or being thrifty or something to that effect. We know that. I think everyone knows. So
Opo.
ganun ang challenge doon. Now, kung makikinig naman ang gobyerno and they will follow suggestions like that, good. But if not, then what can we do? They're in power. So yun ang problema.
Opo, Prof, may epekto po ba sa tingin ninyo yung una tayong nag-declare na meron tayong energy emergency, ang termino nila is
The first country.
emergency, naging headline tayo sa
Mm.
buong mundo kumpara dito sa ating mga karatig na mga bansa sa Southeast Asia, tayo talaga yung pinakaunang nag-declare. Tayo rin yung yata yung ayaw pang aminin na may crisis.
O
Emergency
yun
lang
nga
daw.
eh.
Oo, may kaibahan daw yata yung emergency sa
So,
crisis. Ano pong basa niyo po rito in terms po sa dating nito sa ating mga kapitbahay na mga bansa, sa mga bansa na nanghihimok tayo, na magkaroon po ng mga negosyo sila dito, Prof?
una, nung tama, ang Pilipinas ang first ang unang bansang nag-declare across the world ng state of national energy emergency. Anong ibig sabihin? Precisely because may pangangamba dun sa supply ng energy ng flow of energy or what you call oil flow, and at the same time energy stability in the Philippines. That's why you declare that. So kung ikaw ay from other countries o from an international perspective, hindi ka Pilipino, kumbaga observer ka ng Pilipinas, ano yung messaging na sinasabi noon, yung state of energy emergency national, no? Ibig sabihin, the Philippines is not energy secured. It has what you call energy insecurity. And to certain extent, it did not actually, kumbaga, dun sa tinatawag mong investment climate sa Pilipinas or investors or even the current investor in the Philippines, hindi siya magandang signal. Kasi ibig sabihin, may insecurity ang Pilipinas when you talk about energy. So, yun ang messaging mo. Kung ang tatanungin mo mga tao na nasa labas ng Pilipinas or the international level or international community, yun ang masasagap nila. Now, ano yung impact nun when you talk about economics and when you talk about investment climate in the Philippines? Well, it was an exposure to the whole world that the Philippines really is energy insecure, which is true din to a greater extent. True naman yan eh. Hindi rin naman natin na makakailan nun. Kasi if you look at the Philippines, when you talk about oil supply, we're import dependent almost 100%. So, and not only that, with other products, even rice, even other basic commodities, we're import dependent too. We cannot even have food security kasi kalamihan ng ating mga produkto na kinakain na basic staple food ay ini-import natin. So, it gives an image to the whole international community na ganito ang sitwasyon ng Pilipinas, that we are not energy secured, we're not food secure. So when you talk about investment, of course, mag-iisip yung mga investors dyan na, ang Pilipinas pala ganito ang sitwasyon. And at the same time, ano yung connotation kasi dyan? Kasi when you do business in the Philippines, it's very expensive compared to other countries in ASEAN. Because totoo naman din to. Kasi mataas din naman talaga ang cost ng mga businessmen at saka investors sa Pilipinas. Kasi even the basic commodities are very expensive compared to other ASEAN countries. Totoo naman yan. Pero mas na-amplify pa nung ganitong sitwasyon. And of course, na-headline talaga ang Pilipinas, the first country to declare state of national energy emergency. Which is, ang sinasabi naman nila, ang crisis and emergency is not the same. Yeah, probably in terms of semantics, hindi siya the same kasi emergency and crisis. But come on, give me a break. How would you define crisis? How would you define emergency? Mas mahirap nga yung emergency na word kaysa sa crisis kasi emergency, ibig sabihin, nandun ka na talaga sa, kumbaga, ito yung bangin, paano ka na malalaglag ka na, emergency nga eh. So hindi ko maintindihan ang propaganda at saka yung optics na pinapalabas ng Malacanang na sinasabi nila, everything is okay, there's no such thing as a crisis, there's no such thing as an oil crisis. When everything is rising up, oil, food, everything, every week nagre-rise up. So that's, yun ang sinasabi ko, napaka-detached ng Malacanang at ng gobyerno ni Marcos Jr. sa realidad ng buhay at sa mga nangyayari sa Pilipinas at saka na-experience ng regular na mga Pilipino. Yun yung problema. Why are you making a smokescreen when everyone in the country, is already experiencing all of this problem? Tapos sasabihin mo, okay lang, walang problema ang Pilipinas, we're good, we don't have crisis, we don't have oil crisis or energy supply crisis whatsoever. Ano yun? Yun naman sa domestic level ang nakakainis na para bang anong tingin mo sa amin? Hindi namin alam at wala kaming pakiramdam at hindi namin nakikita na hindi na nga kami gumagamit ng aircon kasi mahal masyado ang kuryente dahil sumipa na lahat, yung pataas. So yun ang tingin ko diyan na para bang bakit ba kailangan bakit ba kailangan nila ng ganitong mga pronouncement? It's like, why are you trying to make the whole Philippines like stupid people when in fact we all know kung ano ang talaga ang state of, kumbaga ano yung state of affairs at ano talaga ang totoong state ng Pilipinas when you talk about energy, when you talk about economics, when you talk about the dollar to a peso. Alam mo yun, yung isa lang na kailangan mong tignan na indicator eh. $1 is equivalent already, i-round off mo to 61 pesos. That's already an indication that there's a problem and there's a crisis in the Philippines when you talk about economics. So hindi na tayo magpaligoy-ligoy pa. At from there, maraming epekto yan. And then, another thing is, yung debt mo, from 17 trillion to 18 point something trillion, it's already an indication that we really have a crisis and we're facing a crisis. So, napaka-crazy naman ng Malacanang at especially ng PCO na sasabihin niya na, oh, everything is okay, we don't have a problem, we don't have a crisis. That's crazy because that is not the reality that the Filipino people is facing. So all of this are optics and trying to, this is not the way you calm down the Filipino people. Alam mo, one example that I really like when you talk about how the government is trying to make the people understand kung ano ang realidad ng buhay given the challenges globally speaking and even the impact of the Middle East crisis. One country that's in ASEAN at saka yung kanilang prime minister who is very good is Singapore. Yung leader nila, alam mo, every now and then saying the exact reality na kinahaharap ng mga Singaporeans, saying na we will face up difficult times, we will face this difficulty, but the government will find a way to solve this problem. We will work this out together as a nation, as a people, and blah, blah, blah. Singapore leader is doing that. Ini-explain talaga niya sa mga tao kung ano ang totoo at anong realidad at sinasabi niya, pero at the same time, ina-assure niya na the government is working on all of these things together with the people. Pero sa Pilipinas, ang nangyayari, dinideny nila yung current situation, pero wala naman silang ino-offer na concrete solution to the problems na ini-experience na ng Pilipinas. Palaging reactive, late na eh. Kasi kapag gobyerno ka, dapat proactive ka.
Opo.
Before pa nangyari, for day one ng Middle East crisis, alam mo na kung anong gagawin mo dapat.
Opo.
Mayroon ka ng plano, may contingency measure ka na. Lahat dapat yan. Hindi yung tipong ngayon, nagkakagulo na, nasa crunch time na, saka ka pala magkikreate ng tinatawag ng crisis management. Oh my God, that's too late.
Opo. Dito naman po
Totoo
sa
naman eh,
Opo,
Admar eh.
dito naman
Diba?
po sa ibang topic, may kaugnayan pa rin dito po, no. Nabuksan muli yung usapin, no, after ng mga world war, palitan ng mga salita ng mga opisyalis ng bansa ng China, ng embahada ng China, 'di ba? Grabe yung every time na may mga issue involve ang gobyerno, bigla na lang may nagiging issue sa West Philippine Sea. Di ko lang
The
alam,
West Philippine
di ko
Sea.
lang alam ngayon bakit walang issue ngayon diyan sa West.
Mayroon.
Meron ba? Pero
Mayroon.
itong tanong ko hindi kaugnay dun sa may kaugnay pa rin sa West Philippine Sea kasi nabubuksan yung joint exploration na naman matapos nga yung mga world war. Ano pong basa nyo rito? Tapos meron pang isa na naman na pinupunan ng Chinese Embassy, yung Strat-base ba yun, na nag-o-oppose dito po sa issue ang presidente, after nga nung mga, sabi ko nga, world war, naglabas na ng pahayag na bukas doon sa joint exploration. Ito po yung nangyari, sabi niyo nga, reactive. Ito po yung nangyari sa kalagitnaan po na meron na tayong krisis na kinakaharap dahil sa gulo dyan po sa gitnang silangan. Ano po ang basa niyo po rito? Ngayon napapahalagahan ang ugnayan natin with China.
Hindi lang inapapahalagahan ang ugnayan natin with China. Nare-reaffirm yung dating foreign policy at magandang ugnayan ng China and the Philippines during the presidency of Duterte, of Rodrigo Duterte. Kasi lahat ito, kung titignan mo, itong joint oil and gas exploration in the South China, the disputed waters of the South China Sea between China and the Philippines, this is not new. Mayroon mutual understanding between President Duterte and Chinese President Xi Jinping during his time, during Duterte time, na itry itong i-push at try to find a way dun sa tinatawag mong constitutional provisions na medyo constraining para i-push ito. Duterte was pushing for this and also advocating for this. And also during the time of Duterte, there was a very good relation with China when you talk about development and economics. Though yung siniseparate niya ang issue ng sovereignty claims natin sa South China Sea, that's a different issue. Let the diplomat handle it. Pero in other areas na walang conflict of interest or conflict between China and the Philippines, Duterte was saying, the President Duterte was saying, let's continue and let's have and explore good relation and constructive relation with China because it benefits the Philippines. Hindi ito bago. This is exactly the foreign policy when you talk about China of President Duterte, na nung po si Marcos Jr., binaliwala niya, ni-pivot niya towards the United States na hindi na naging balanse ang relationship natin with both superpowers. Kaya tayo, with this situation right now, nasa crunch time tayo, ngayon lang nasabi na, okay, let's reopen the possible joint and oil and gas exploration and possibly ventures with China in the disputed South China Sea. And Marcos Jr. was the one saying na, okay, pwede na tayo, siguro kailangan nating buksan ulit yung usapan. You see, too late. Nasa crunch time ka. So kung tinuloy lang niya ang foreign policy ni Duterte, maybe hindi na lang ito joint oil and gas exploration. Probably there was already a joint venture and probably we're not anymore in an energy crisis at the moment. Yun mga sinasabi ko na kung sana may wisdom lang sila, kung alam nila kung ano yung dapat gawin para sa bansa, na hindi naman ibig sabihin na you sacrifice your sovereignty or sovereign rights claim in the South China Sea, but you make a way na may magandang usapan at nababalanse mo yung relationship with superpowers, especially China and the United States. Di sana mas magaan-gaan ang pakiramdam nating mga Pilipino na we are secure that we have oil and gas supply kasi mayroon kang venture with China. At the end of the day, it's China who will be paying for all of this kasi wala naman tayong capital, wala rin naman tayong technology without a manpower for technical kung paano gagawin itong mga oil and gas exploration. It's China. What we have to do on our side actually is to find a way na matuloy yan by looking at the constitutional constraint. So ngayon, si Marcos Jr. sabi niya, okay, let's try to talk to China again about these things. Ang tanong din, ang problema din, okay, nagsabi na si Marcos Jr., okay, sabi ko nga nung nabasa ko yan, that's a positive thing. At least, mayroon naman wisdom si Jr. na naisip niya ito. So okay, good. And out of the blue, there are people like Carpio, even Strat-based right now, the armed forces of the Philippines saying, no, we cannot deal with China, we cannot do that. And China is not a reliable partner. In the very first place, bakit kayo nag-o-oppose? Hindi ko talaga ito maintindihan. Why would you oppose something that at the end of the day, if you handle it properly and you negotiate properly, will benefit the Philippines in every possible way, especially when you talk about energy security? Kasi hindi ko naman sa akin kasi ang tingin ko dito, I'm working on a paper on this, a policy paper in this right now, and I will be presenting in a conference, international conference around July. Sinasabi ko, hindi ibig sabihin na kapag nakipag-joint and oil and gas exploration ka na isinantabi mo yung sovereignty claim mo, no, not necessarily. You just put it here and let other people negotiate on that. Pero dito tayo sa development project, economic, na alam natin na kapag properly negotiated yan at naayos mo, na-tease out mo, definitely the Philippines will benefit. So pero ngayon, AFP is opposing for what reason that the armed forces is opposing this? Do they really understand what it means? Ano ba ang ibig sabihin nito? Siguro before they oppose like strat-based, well strat-based is strat-based is already an expectation. I expected them to oppose precisely because they're funded by what? They're also very close to the United States. Oh, come on, give me a break. Kilalang kilala ko ang mga tao sa strat-based at kilalang kilala ko ang strat-based. Kung pwede lang ako magsalita ng everything that I know about strat-based, I will. But regardless of that, ang sinasabi ko lang, what is the main reason why you're opposing it? Is just because it's China? Sino bang gusto nila na mag-partner dyan sa oil and gas dyan sa sa South China Sea? American corporation, na private corporation, not the state, not the government. Who benefits from it? Is it the Filipino people? If in any case maging maging totoo yan, na mga American or Western corporation, hindi naman ang Pilipino magbe-benefit dyan kasi it's not within the hands of the government. It's within the private sector. Pag private sector, capitalist ang orientation yan. It benefits them and then it's still the same. Tayo pa rin ang magbe-bear ng, tayo ang bibili, tayo ang magkukonsume, and tayo pa rin. It's a different mechanism, you know? But China, what China wants really with this is government to government level na at the end of the day ang magbe-benefit at ng whatever proceeds is the Filipino people, and of course the Chinese will benefit from it. Ganun naman talaga, it's a deal eh. So ngayon hindi ko maintindihan talaga ang mga opposition, Carpio, strat-based, the armed forces. Ang gusto ko sa sa kanila, before you even, how do you call that, oppose something, dapat pag-aralan, dapat tignan nyo muna kung ano yung kung bakit kayo nag-o-oppose in the very first place, at ano yung reason for opposition. Just because it is China? That's very stupid to say that just because it's China. And look, to be very honest, China, between the Philippines and China, actually 60-40, 60 ang proceed sa atin, 40 sa kanila. Ang gastos dyan sa oil and gas exploration na yan, and even if it's possible and if it pushed through, kung magkakaroon ng political will ang Marcos Jr. government on this, and there are agency like the Department of Foreign Affairs na gusto ito, sinasabi nila they're open to talks and all of this, and even China said na, we're open to possibilities and talks. Ang gagastos dyan, alam mo kung sino? Hindi naman ang Pilipinas kasi wala nga tayong capital. Wala tayong technology, wala tayong manpower. Sino ang gagastos dyan?
Opo.
China. So bakit ka mag-oppose when it comes to these things? Just because it's China, just because it's South China Sea? So,
Opo. Baka kasi hindi nakapasok
hindi sila magbe-benefit. Hindi sila ang directly magbe-benefit, at saka yung mga corporations na hawak nila, or
Opo.
mayroon silang
Baka kasi dahil doon, Prof, sa hindi nakapasok sa Hong Kong Disneyland. Hindi po. Sa makabilang buhay pa naman itong siya yata yung nagtatag dito. Pero lipat lang ako, Prof, may kapapasok lang na balita. Nabasa ko dito sa Al Jazeera. May breaking news sila. Ang sabi dito, Iran will withdraw from ceasefire agreement if Israel continues to attacks on Lebanon. Kasi di ba kabilang yata ito sa kanilang
number 4.
Oo, na dapat, pero ang sabi ng Israel, hindi, tuloy pa rin. So, tingnan natin kung anong...
sabi ko nga sa'yo, di ba?
Oo.
Sabi ko nga sa'yo, ang hirap ng nila. Ang number yan eh. Number 3, end Israel strike against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Sabi ko sa'yo, di ba? Number 3, mahirap.
Oo nga po.
Yan.
Pero dito tayo, Prof, isa pa, maliban sa joint exploration, ngayon, abay, sinusuyo na muli natin ang China na madagdagan yung mga flights. Nagpulong
Yes,
po, no?
tourism.
Ang Embahada ng Pilipinas sa Embahada ng China sa Pilipinas, nagpagpulong ata itong taga Department of Tourism para nga madagdagan pa. So, nakita natin ngayon natin nakita, kasi nabawasan talaga ng husto nung pag ikaw ay Chinese, pagkakamalan ka, mga espiya yan, sleeper cell, di ba? May mga ganong mga termino, di ba?
You see? Again, I will refer to the previous administration of President Duterte. During President Duterte's time, if you look at the tourists na pumapasok sa Pilipinas noong panahon ni Digong, number 1, Koreans, I think. Of course, given na yung Korean, may Korean na nga sa Angeles City, yung Korean village ba yan, mga school na nga sila, churches eh. Marami talagang Korean. hanggang ngayon. Pero what I'm saying is, during the time of Duterte, when you talk about tourists sa Pilipinas, number one ang Korean in terms of number. Number two, ang mga Chinese. So, ibig sabihin, ang Chinese comfortable to go to the Philippines to be tourist. Kasi nung time na yun, friendly. Hindi ibig sabihin na Chinese national ka, pag nasa Pilipinas ka, spy ka na agad ng China or ng CPC or something. Walang ganon nung panahon ni Duterte. I'm not saying na walang mga Chinese na gumagawa ng kalokohan, mayroon din. Hindi naman common naman yan sa buong mundo. Pero what I'm saying is yung climate of tourism, especially when you refer to the Chinese during Digong's time, is very friendly. Kaya maraming Chinese ang pumupunta. At naiinganyo sila na magturismo sa atin. And one thing na maganda nga sa sinasabi ko sa mga Chinese tourists, may pera. May pera talaga yan, bibili yan, magbe-benefit ang local economy mo and even the national economy kasi may revenue ka na makukuha sa kanila kasi mayayaman yung mga yan. May pera talaga sila. Ang purchasing power ng Chinese people is very high in Asia and even in the world. Kaya kung titignan mo, ang mga turista sa Europe ang nakakabili ng mga Prada, kung ano-ano mga ano, pag pumunta ka ng France and Europe and even in Macau, makikita mo, these are Chinese tourists who can buy luxury goods. Really, that's really the truth. So, nung panahon ni Digong, maganda, pero panahon ni Marcos Jr., biglang, shoot, wala na. And even the tourism industry, bumaba talaga. So right now, dahil kailangan natin ng revenue and supposedly, ang tourism industry natin is supposedly, one of the kumbaga supposedly one of the shining star of the Philippine economy in terms of sector. Nung panahon ni Marcos Jr., plummeting. So ngayon, kailangan natin ng revenue, so nakikipag-usap na ulit ang Department of Tourism. Well, I think nakikipag-usap naman talaga sila. They were trying. Ngayon, mas evident lang dahil sa crisis na, mag-open ng maraming flights ang China na ang exchange of people when you talk about tourism, lalo na ang mga Chinese papuntang Pilipinas, will be more. That is a good step on the part of the Department of Tourism, Admar. I would agree with it. Makipag-usap sa embahada kay Ambassador Jing. However, one thing that you always have to remember under this Marcos Jr. administration, the climate in the Philippines, when you talk about Chinese tourists and Chinese national, is still not okay. Kasi bakit? Andyan pa rin yung mga ibang departments mo or agency of government, especially the defense and even I'm not saying the whole of the AFP, no, but certain sectors or certain figures in AFP, and even you have the likes of Tariela, who are very antagonistic to the Chinese, even to the Chinese leadership, and even to the Chinese to the CPC. If you still have these people who are very vocal in public or very vocal in social media and even in mainstream media saying negative things against the Chinese people, President Xi, the CPC, and no Chinese will come to the Philippines kahit ano pang airlines ang i-open mo, kahit ano pang mga opening ng airlines ang gawin mo from halimbawa Hainan to Manila or let us say Yunnan to Manila, kahit ilan pang i-open mo, if the climate is not good for Chinese tourists in the Philippines, they will not come to the Philippines.
Opo.
So ang sinasabi ko lang, it's one thing for Department of Tourism to open up flights between the two sides. But they should also work in convincing the other department na, huy, if we want to have Chinese tourism, we want to have revenue, pwede ba? Tone down and let the diplomats discuss issues that have something to do with the South China Sea kasi trabaho nila yon. Huwag na natin masyadong i-politicize yan at i-weaponize yan against China kasi it will not help the tourism industry in the Philippines when you talk about Chinese. Hindi sila pupunta sa Pilipinas and it's deliberate already. So, ang sinasabi ko lang, ang gobyerno mo, tulad ng gobyerno ni Marcos, kung ito yung Department of Tourism, ito ang kanilang target, I think the rest of the government, institutions or agencies should cooperate and they should have what you call one nation approach, but there's no such thing. Kanya-kanyang voices, kanya-kanyang tira, kanya-kanyang bida-bida, bawat department. Wala kang synergy ng mga policy na kung saan it actually supports one agency to the other. Walang ganon, walang synergy ang Marcos Jr. when you talk about policy. Another thing before we proceed is like, for example, open joint oil and gas exploration. Si Marcos ang nagsabi, DFA reaffirm, and then after si Marcos Jr. din may problema. After few days or few weeks, naglabas si Marcos Jr. naming certain aspect of the KIG na asserting sovereignty. Wala akong problema doon kasi it has to be done actually in a way to reassert your sovereignty claim kung may sovereignty claim ka dyan sa KIG. However, the timing is not proper. You ask the Chinese for help. Oil, tourism, and joint oil and gas exploration, and then you put this on the front line? My God, what do you think of the Chinese? Sasabihin ng mga Chinese, ano ba? Gusto nyo ba kaming kausap, makipag-usap sa amin, tapos ganito ang gagawin mo? Ano to? So mixed signal siya. The timing is also not right. I'm not against it, to be frank. But the timing is not right. You need to learn how to do the timing. In politics, in geopolitics, in international relation, timing is important. Walang timing itong Marcos Jr. Walang synergy, walang timing. So, labo-labo siya. Kanya-kanya ng tira, kanya-kanya ng propaganda, at saka kanya-kanya ng bida-bida, bawat department. So, sabi ko, ano ba ang gulo-gulo? So, wala talaga. Walang mangyayari dito. Puro lang to salita at talks. Pero the concrete action, the concrete outcome, hindi natin alam kung mayroon ba. Kasi nga magulo. So yun yung sinasabi ko, ang gulo-gulo.
Opo, at bilang panghuli, nakipagpulong din pala ang Chinese Embassy with DOST Secretary. Nagkaroon din ata sila ng exchange of views on deepening cooperation in the fields of AI, new energy and disaster prevention and mitigation. Ako, baka magalit si nito, Secretary Gibo. Pero
Magagalit ang
last
EDCA
message.
dito.
Last message yun na lang po, Prof.
Oo. Well, actually, maganda naman ito na nakipagpulong sila sa Department of Science and Technology, I think, DOST, I think, no? Sa Chinese Embassy, especially when you talk about technology, especially when you talk about AI, anything related to information technology and AI, talagang kailangan mo, kung gusto mo mag-improve, China is one of the best, number one in this area. So maganda yon, at least may exchange at siguro pwedeng magkaroon ng mga joint projects on this. So okay yan. Pero ang tanong kasi doon, again, sana naman hindi siya i-oppose, i-oppose ng kung sino-sino pa. Kasi to be very honest talaga, Admar, sa panghuli natin, when you talk about geopolitics, when you talk about alignment, and when you talk about the global realities, even the regional realities in Asia, we need to remember and we need to recognize in the Philippines na you cannot do away with China. That is a fact. You cannot do away with them. You cannot continue having this antagonistic relationship with China just because you have a dispute in the South China Sea. Because to be very frank, the dispute is a dispute. But look at Vietnam, look at Malaysia. They're still managing good relation and they're benefiting from China, even there's still a dispute in the South China Sea. So the Philippines must also think about this. You cannot ignore China, you cannot do away with them. They're the regional hegemon and they will emerge as number one. The rise of China is already solid. After the Middle East war, there's no question anymore. The decline of the United States is very rapid. It's declining dramatically speaking, economically, militarily, in almost every aspect. China, at this time, still preserve. Their economy is their economy is still generating 5.5 GDP. It's not 10 anymore, but still very consistent, which is very good. Their growth is still continuing. And in terms of losses, kasi hindi sila mahilig sa gera Hindi sila mahilig sa ganito Wala silang history on that. Preserve ang kanilang economy, preserve ang kanilang military industry and all of these things. So, at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, we need to be wise, Filipinos. We are in Asia. The hegemon in Asia is China. China will emerge as number one in many respects after the Middle East crisis. On the other hand, so kung ikaw wiser, you have a good relation with the number one in the world. It will happen and it's emerging already. And another reality that we need to remember, even in terms of transaction in international trade of oil, anong sabi ng Russia at ng Iran? Transaction na dadaan sa Strait of Hormuz should be paid in RMB already, in yuan, not anymore dollar. And even Russia said transaction should Kapag sila ang nagsusupply, ang transaction nila, kasi Russia is an oil producing and gas producing and even exporting agricultural product inputs. Ang sabi ni Putin, it would be denominated in RMB. So if you really look at the world right now, there's a shift. Wala na, the petrodollar will go down, magiging petro-yuan yan. So it's still China. So kapag tayo medyo may wise ka, hindi ko sinasabi na hindi maging ang sinasabi ko, we need to balance relationship with all major powers. And we need to have that constructive engagement and relationship with China. I'm not saying that you follow China. What I'm saying is, you need to have a constructive relationship. Yun ang importante siguro. So yun yung sinasabi ko. Balik tayo doon kay Digong. Balik tayo kay Digong again, presidency ni Digong. Friends to all, enemy to none, independent foreign policy, neutrality, and balanced relationship with United States and China and with other major powers. And focus tayo sa sarili nating development. Huwag na tayong makialam sa mga issue like for example ng Taiwan Strait or whatsoever. Let's just focus on our own problem, solve our own problem, and focus on a better Philippines. Ganun dapat ang tingin ko sa Pilipinas.